Welcome back to the agenda. So countries across the globe have mobilized to help Turkey and Syria's rescue and recovery efforts following yesterday's devastating earthquake. Yesterday's 7.8 magnitude quake and subsequent smaller tremors were located near the town of Gaziantep. Another earthquake struck Turkey this morning, measuring a magnitude of 5.6. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has declared 7 days of national mourning, and Syria has appealed to the United Nations for help following devastating earthquakes that killed more than 4,000 people and toppled buildings across southeast Turkey and northern Syria. Well, humanitarian aid organization Gift of the Givers says 2 of its hospitals in Syria, one close to the border with Turkey, are overwhelmed with many casualties and fatalities after yesterday's powerful earthquake that rocked the region. Head of the organization, Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman, says there is a particular concern about the death toll in Syria, as casualties from most parts of the country have not yet reached its hospitals. Dr. Sooliman joins us now for the latest. Dr. Sooliman, a good morning to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time, as I imagine this is obviously a very busy time for you. I think talk to us about what you do know and what you're hearing about what the situation is really looking like on the ground. I suppose I'm really asking you as well to paint a picture, because we're seeing the very frightening visuals, but some of the individual stories that you are hearing coming out of Syria and Turkey.
Well, it's more collective stories. You know, when I spoke to the Turkish ambassador yesterday, she said this is the worst earthquake they've had since 1939. But it's quite obvious, you know, when you see the pictures, when you get the feedback from my teams, it hasn't affected one city. It has affected 10 cities in Turkey and several cities and villages inside Syria. Now, the problem is that in those 10 cities affected, there's more than 15 million people that live there. And many of them lie in high-rise, live in high-rise buildings. And if that collapses, the chances of survival is very, very slim. And the death toll is going to be significantly higher than what you've seen. And in one area, 500 buildings collapsed. Now you add that to the amount of families in each flat, it's just horrendous to even figure that out. It's a similar situation in Syria itself. Syria is complicated by the fact that it has no proper functional economy. It's coming out of a major war. You know, it's been affected in job losses, unemployment, skilled people have left the country, and they're trying their best. Our 2 hospitals, called Al-Rahma and Al-Hilal Hospital, are both full of patients coming from various parts of Syria, but those are not the only patients. The patients are going anywhere they can get a hospital, a clinic, a health center, because there's just too many. In fact, fortunately for us, we have 320 personnel in our hospital, which we set up since 2012. And right now, our teams are going to other hospitals to help speed up, to clear the load and help those people to try to save lives. In Turkey itself today, this evening, our first search and rescue team is leaving of 27 personnel. Tomorrow we're sending 20 trauma teams, 20 members who will make up a trauma team. And we're going to follow that up by more search and rescue teams and more medical teams once we get there and know what's required.
Yeah, we know the work of Gift of the Givers is really plugging in the gaps where there is a need. And so when you talk about the team that's leaving to give healthcare assistance, and of course the hospitals that the organization also has in the area, it talks about a very serious shortage of healthcare. And in a crisis like this, where 4,300 lives have been lost, one can imagine just the casualties. Outside of those 2 hospitals, what do healthcare facilities really look like, particularly in Syria, especially?
Most of the health facilities have been destroyed. You know, it's sad to say, but our hospital is probably the largest hospital in all of North Syria. And that was a hospital that came up of an ordinary building, which we expanded, went backwards, forwards, upwards, and put 4 additional buildings with it. And many of the hospitals have been bombed, doctors were targeted, ambulances were shot at, health facilities were destroyed. So people came out of what they could survive, you know, and rebuild. Many of the hospitals that are functioning have been bombed. So, you know, they don't have adequate health facilities. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the consultants. They don't have the specialist people. Most of them have left. They've taken their families and gone. And that's why I take my hat off to those people who actually stay and serve in the hospitals, yeah, and highly skilled personnel. That's on that one side. On the other side, on the Turkey side, what's complicating the matter is the fact that it's heavy rains, deep snow, and extremely cold weather of -5 degrees, which complicates the whole process. And you can't get to the people fast enough. And if they're lying under rubble and they're not warm, the cold is going to be a major issue, and it will take many more lives.
Yeah, you talk about those that are still under the rubble, and I'm keen to hear the sort of techniques that are being used to get to those that are still underneath the rubble. I mean, do we have any sort of innovation, and what plans are being done? And I think the real question is the capacity as well to get to those that might still be trapped.
Well, that's the reason Turkey made a very quick call for international assistance. That call came very, very fast, which in itself is an indication of the vastness of the hugeness of the disaster. That call was, a very short space of time. And they realized that even though they could send personnel from other parts of the country, they said straight, it's 10 cities. How do you deal with 10 cities at the same time? And your emergency personnel, your healthcare workers, your professionals have all died in those 10 cities. The people that can help you. In fact, they've told me an ambassador was killed, members of parliament have been killed in their own parliament, and many, many such people have passed on. So it was very prudent and logical to call for international assistance, because you bring skilled people from all over the world, and the world has responded in a great way. And they're coming from all over to assist. And yes, remember the normal cities that are functioning still need their medical care. So these hospitals will need additional support, or makeshift hospitals. In fact, at 1:30 this morning, the Turkish ambassador sent me a list of items required. And I said, when I looked at this list, I said, but these are for field hospitals. She said, yes, we need to set up field hospitals. And the fact that Turkey is asking to set up field hospitals when they themselves are so adept at setting up their own field hospitals means they are in a real crisis.
Yeah, I can imagine that you have quite a long itinerary before you with lots and lots to do and many calls that you're taking. So I won't take too much of your time, but I think one last question before I let you go. You talk about the international community having come out to help. What do you still need in order to assist Turkey and Syria, firstly? And secondly, what do you make of that death toll? 4,300 as it sits right now. I mean, just hours ago, we were talking about 500. So it seems to have shot up very, very quickly. Do you think that we have the right numbers?
No, there's no way you got the right numbers. That figure is going to climb substantially higher. It's a huge crisis. With all those buildings down, that's going to run into thousands. That figure is only. And remember, people are not focusing on collecting stats. They're focusing on saving lives. So that stats come, by the way, when it comes in. There's areas that haven't been reached. People are not. Whoever get into our buildings, they're not necessarily government people. They are citizens. They go in, they don't wait for anybody. They start moving the rocks. They look for their families. They pull out bodies. They know who's alive. They know how many people have been injured, which hospitals you go to. In 24 hours, it's impossible to have exact stats of what's going on and where. And people, as I said, are not focusing on that. The real figures will come out later. But the fact that it's already saying 4,300 in 1 day, can you imagine what it's going to say in 5 days?
Oh. Yeah, that's quite frightening. What do you still need? That was the final question. What do you still need?
People, it's best just to make cash deposits, because we will buy most of the stuff in Turkey. It will be faster and easier. Our details are on our website, or they can call our toll-free number, 0800 786 911. As I said, the Turkish government has sent me to a list. I want to look at them and see what we can take from here, or what would be easier to buy from the other side.
Yeah.